In the U.S., the first day of early voting for next month's midterm elections is now underway in Georgia. There have been big lines from the moment polls opened at 7 a.m. The race for governor is a rematch between Republican incumbent Kemp and Democrat Stacey Abrams. And the run for Senate seeing Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock trying to keep his seat against controversial Republican challenger Herschel Walker. Jackson Proskow is at a polling station for us tonight in Atlanta. Jackson, how was the first day of turnout, and what are voters you spoke to saying about who they're voting for and why?
Well, Neetu, keep in mind that we are more than 3 weeks out from Election Day. Today is the first day of early voting, and yet what we've seen are these incredible lines. More than an hour to vote here in Atlanta. Sources tell me in some of the outlying suburbs that people waited more than 3 hours to cast a ballot today. Really, what's driving voters to the polls are three factors. That governor's race you mentioned, that's very close. The Senate race that is drawing national attention and seems to grow more outlandish by the day. And then restrictive new voting laws here in Georgia, which were passed after the 2020 election, that have allowed anyone to challenge the eligibility of voters in counties and in local elections right across the state. That has really cogged up the wheels of elections here. It has also raised a lot of concern amongst voters that people will not be able to actually cast a ballot. And that is what we heard from voters today. That is what is drawing them to the polls nice and early to make sure that they can vote.
My primary issue with the election this cycle is, access to voting and making sure that people can, I probably waited close to an hour to vote. I think that's unacceptable.
That was part of the reason why I was just like, let me go ahead and vote before things start getting crazy, because I know Election Day is going to be ridiculous.
So, Jackson, Herschel Walker, as we've mentioned, up for Republican Senate in Georgia, keeps making headlines. Do you think it's helping or hindering his campaign?
There's two ways of looking at this. One is that the electorate is so divided along partisan lines that Republicans will vote for any Republican on the ballot. But this race seems to be getting more complicated with each new scandal. You, of course, had the scandal breaking that Herschel Walker paid for an abortion for an ex-girlfriend, despite being an avowed anti-abortion activist. And now this scandal where in a debate on Friday night, he pulled out a police badge. And he's been accused repeatedly of exaggerating his ties to law enforcement. That was an honorary badge, which, according to the National Association of Sheriffs, is something that belongs in a trophy case. And yet, once again today, in an interview with NBC News, Walker doubled down and insisted that he has had some sort of active role in law enforcement.
This is from my hometown. This is from Johnson County, from the sheriff from Johnson County, which is a legit badge. Everyone can make fun, but this badge give me the right. Let me finish. If anything happened in this county, I have the right to work with the police and getting things done.
So a really interesting dynamic is emerging here where we may see split votes by Republicans, where they may actually vote for the Democratic candidate, Raphael Warnock, and then down the ballot when it comes to voting for governor, vote for the Republican candidate, Kemp. That tells you just how bizarre this all is. Neetu, very likely we're back here in December for a runoff election for that Senate seat. That's how close things are right now.
Wow, incredible and interesting indeed. Jackson Proskow in Atlanta tonight. Thanks, Jackson.